Hi, I'm Ivan. I'm an EFT practitioner. If you've seen my videos before, you can go ahead and skip to the next segment where we're going to start your EFT session for whatever condition you have. If you haven't, it's important that you watch this introduction. It's very brief to show you where to tap. So we're going to begin with the karate chop point. Okay, that's the first point of contact. You can use 1 or 2 fingers. I prefer 2. The next point of tapping is the crown of the head, and I like to use a kind of woodpecker type style with a beak like that, and that's on the crown of your head right there. So you're going to tap like that. The next point is above the eyebrows. Okay, just touching the eyebrows there. Next point is the temples. The next point is the fleshy part under your eyes. And the next point is just between your nose and your lip right there. And the next is just the cleft of your chin right there. And the next part is right here on the knobs of your collarbones. Makes a really nice kind of thump sound. And finally, we're going to end up with tapping under the armpit, where if you're a woman, it'd be a bra line, like that. Okay, and before you start each session, and I will remind you, you need to measure the intensity of your condition. So, for example, if you had a migraine, you measure between 0 and 10, 10 being the most intense. So let's say your migraine is a 10. You then do a round of tapping, and then you reassess. Is it still a 10? Has it dropped to an 8? Is it a 5 or a 2? And so on. Okay, now we've got that. Let's move on to the segment and begin our session for your particular condition. Hi, welcome back. So, welcome to this EFT session on grief, bereavement, sadness, however you want to frame it. And just a note to say that this is not about getting rid of any feelings of love that you have for that person, whether they've died or left you or the end of a relationship or anything like that. It's just to neutralize the sadness. That's the main purpose of this session, okay? And in this example, I'm going to say that I'm going to use one that's personal to me, my grandmother, okay, who died. So you can use your father or replace with whatever you want, okay? So as with all my sessions, I'm going to use an intensity level, okay? And you may be in tears at this point. It's perfectly natural, perfectly fine. So I'm going to assume it's a recent death. My grandmother died a few years ago, but I'm going to assume it's very recent, and you have an intensity level of 10 on a scale of 0 to 10, okay? So here we go. Let's begin. So we're going to go with the karate chop point. Okay. Even though I have this sadness, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Repeat. Even though I have this sadness about my grandmother dying, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Okay. The death of my grandmother. This sadness about 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 the death of my grandmother. It's actually getting emotional. Okay, so you can label this however you want. Okay, we can shorten it now. We're going to shorten it on this one. Now that we know we're talking about grandmother or father or child or whatever you're directing it at, loss of a partner, love affair, whatever you want. Just replace grandmother with that. And now we're going to switch to just the sadness. Okay, all right, here we go. Oh, yes. Measure the intensity. I'm saying I'm down to about a 7 now. Okay, so I've gone from a 10 down to a 7, which is better. Okay. Even though I have this remaining sadness about the death of my grandmother, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. By the way, I'm going to have my grandmother in the karate chop, but the rest will just be sadness. So repeat after me. Even though I have this remaining sadness about the death of my grandmother, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And I forgive myself for anything I may have done to contribute to this. And I forgive my grandmother for anything she may have done to contribute to this. Okay. This remaining sadness. 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 Okay, so let's reassess. I'm down to a 3 now. Okay, so I'm going to do one last round to get it down to 0, and then we're done. But if you're not done, you keep continuing until you get to 0 or an acceptable level of sadness for you. And you can just keep doing it as long as you need to, okay? All right, here we go. Even though I have this last remaining sadness about the death of my grandmother, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And I forgive myself for anything I may have done to contribute to this. And I forgive my grandmother for anything she may have done to contribute to this. And I forgive anyone else for anything they may have done to contribute to this. This last remaining sadness. 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 Okay, so hopefully you're down to either a 0 or a very acceptable level of sadness to do with the loss of a loved one or the end of a relationship. I wish you all the best. I wish you love and peace and happiness. Thank you for watching. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that session of EFT, and I hope we've taken the edge off your condition at least, if not got it down to 0, which would be fantastic. If you enjoyed the session, please subscribe below. Also, you'll see my contact details if you would like a one-to-one session. Just contact me directly. I can do EFT around the world on Skype or Zoom or WhatsApp, whatever you prefer. If you're in England, I can set up a one-to-one meeting if you're in London or the Southeast. Also, below, you'll find in the description a link to donate or buy me a cup of coffee If you've enjoyed these videos, it helps me keep them free of charge for you. Okay. All right. Happy tapping and keep going. Good luck.